Listeners, I had to bring you back for part 2 of talking about affairs because Brian Burns here with me, was kind enough to come back because when we said goodbye in our last episode, I looked through all the questions and I said, I think I hit on all of them, but I said, oh, I missed this one. What if I strongly suspect that my spouse is having an affair? And Brian said, oh, we need to talk about that one. So here we are to talk about that. Brian, take it away.
Yeah, I mean that's just that's a in therapy and working with couples, that's just so common that well, I wouldn't say it's a hard scenario where one spouse has suspicions and the other spouse and sharing them, and if they are, the other spouse is denying them. And I think most often in my experience, if you have suspicions, if something doesn't feel right or things aren't adding up, then you're probably onto something. Now that doesn't mean that that there's a full-blown sexual intercourse affair happening, but there's very likely, in my experience, some dishonesty and deceit. Uh, and so trust your gut, and particularly if the other spouse is, putting up a strong defense. The best defense is a good offense, as we all know.
Right.
So those spouses that I hear just self-righteously saying, "How could you, not trust me? That's your insecurity. That's your problem. I would never do
Right.
that." That demonstrates a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy about the other person's feelings, not taking those feelings seriously, which is a problem in and of itself. And I think that spouse doesn't have a lot of credibility in my mind. And so I think if you have suspicions, then I hate to say it, I mean, that's a painful thing to have to face, but it's probably based on something real.
Well, that's helpful, and it's interesting because my last podcast, the woman Wendy Sterling talked about she just had a feeling in her gut, and she was
Uh-huh.
right. And
Yeah,
I so
yeah,
appreciate you bringing that up. And then too, Brian, as I walk the earth, I see so many women who feel like, oh, they're being crazy.
mhm,
Oh, I shouldn't bring this up. This is just me. I'm insecure.
yeah,
So they carry that with them. And then if you've got on the other side of that, someone who is denying it and
mhm,
just adding fire to that fuel
mhm,
of making you feel like, and
mhm,
Brian, I have seen that in my
yeah,
life, in my
yeah,
family, in my friendships, and
yeah,
that's sad. And it's okay to trust your gut. And it's not wrong for you to talk to your spouse if you're questioning something. And
right,
they don't get to tell you how you're supposed to feel or that it's stupid. They need to have compassion and make you feel better.
truth. Yeah, I mean, it's a scary thing to face the truth. It's always hard to face the truth, but that's the only path to really feeling full happiness and joy and meaning in your life, whether that's in a marriage or in other ways. That facing
Right.
the truth is the right path to a healthy marriage.
Yep.
So when there is like unspoken things like that, I mean, that becomes kind of a collusion, right? Like the cheating spouse isn't going to talk about it, and the spouse who's scared to face it is not going to talk about it either. And then they're both
Right.
kind of colluding. And again, that doesn't mean that it's the hurt partner's fault, but it's that kind of unspoken agreement that they're in that keeps things going. So yes, be brave, be courageous, if uh, and call it out.
And I can't help but see how self-love plays into this.
Yeah.
Love
Mhm,
yourself enough
mhm.
to you
Yes.
you need to be respected by that other person. You
Yes.
need to be able to tell them how you're feeling. And so that's such a thing that I see with so many people. If they could love themselves enough to
Right.
value how they're feeling so that they will bring it to the table, that can heal
Right.
a lot.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Lisa, I want to say just another, I guess, some overall comments about affairs. Um, the institution of marriage is an interesting thing. I think it's the best way. I'm biased for sure.
Yeah.
A big fan of marriage. I
Yes.
think it's the best way to really live a meaningful, healthy, happy life, because you're forced to learn about yourself and face reality and be a full person with someone else. But monogamy is not easy. Um,
Mhm.
maybe there's some mammals that practice monogamy in the world, but I don't know of any. And humans are no exception to that. It's not particularly natural to only have sex with one person your entire life.
Mhm.
So it's hard. The reasons why people have affairs are pretty simple. It's more a question, I think, of why not. Why don't you have affairs?
Right.
Why don't you? And that those questions, I think, are or answers are more powerful. It's because you care about your marriage, because you don't want to hurt your spouse and your kids, because you have values that are important to you, integrity. Um, and those are maybe easy answers to say, but to live those answers, I think, is crucial. And that's how we stay monogamous and have healthy marriages.
Right. To keep those at the forefront of your
Yeah.
mind and um, to stay open. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, I've been married for 30 years, so I haven't had a lot of help. So I probably could have
Good
used it.
job.
Not a little
You,
long.
good job. You're doing better than 50% of
I
us.
know. I know, or so it seems. So that is good. And it just is, this is such good information for people. So again, thank you for popping back in here and spending the time.
You're welcome. I do want to just qualify something here. I've been
Yes.
speaking in very traditional marriage, heterosexual marriage terms throughout these two conversations. So I just want to kind of say that most of what I have said likely applies to less traditional family configurations and relationships. But the topics or the choices of an open marriage or polyamory, I mean, those affairs happen in those scenarios as well. But it's
Okay, that's kind of mind-boggling, and that's a whole nother thing in my head.
we all are operating under contracts, either spoken or unspoken, and
Yeah.
to successfully have an open marriage, like, God bless you. I'm not that's hard, but that involves contracts and agreements, and people are not good at keeping agreements in those scenarios either. So yes,
Right.
affairs happen in open marriages and in uh, polyamorous
That
families.
is an
Well,
interesting perspective that I
mhm.
never thought
Yeah, well,
of.
yeah,
So the same truths apply to
absolutely.
any
Ab-
kind of a contract that you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, a lot of therapists aren't, in our training, we're just not exposed to those non-traditional, um, like the gay, especially gay male relationship culture going back decades is, that's much more normative to have open relationships that are based on agreements that don't fall in love with anybody else, but one night stands or trysts or are perfectly within the norm. So so again, there are rules, but it's just a different agreement that works.
I could
So
see where that could be dicey, a little bit more complicated.
it sure can be. unless it's just your norm, it's what you're used to.
Right.
But for more traditional relationships, that would be, it often is very dicey. And
Yeah.
I have couples actually after an affair, they'll like one of the things that they'll try to maybe heal and bring spice back into things is to open up the marriage. And again, I can see how that could work. But again, like there has to be rules. People break them. People do fall in love. People do sleep with their
Yeah.
friend, their kids' friends, moms, and it's dicey.
That is interesting too. I had no idea that that was how people were trying to heal some of their
It's
marriages.
it's it's one way, but it's like kind of often a knee jerk reaction, kind of Hail
Right.
Mary way to do it, and not
Right. When
based
you're
on
in
real.
that acute stage, maybe you're making those
Yes,
decisions.
yeah, 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 exactly. It's sort
So
of
probably,
you're kicking the can down the road, frankly, to when you can get to real healing, which is fine. I mean, some people need to kind of do it their own way before really facing the truth about themselves and their spouse.
right. Yep. And it can take a long time sometimes. And
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know that it ever heals.
Right. That's like
You
that's
know?
the as we talked last time, for 2/3, it may never really fully heal.
Right. And when I look back like on my grandparents, I don't know. And I think things have changed with what we expect from marriages. I think you mentioned that. But when I look
Mhm.
back at them, I don't know if they had that great of a marriage. I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if um, but that's nobody expected more. It seemed like.
Yeah, it's different expectations, different norms. And for them, maybe it was a great marriage. But
Right.
for you, it sounds, and definitely for me, that's not the kind of marriage that I want to have. Um,
You want one of those that helps you grow into the beautiful human being that you are meant to
That's
be.
right. I want to feel loved and cared for and important and desired, and I want to be that spouse too. I want to be
Yes.
loving and desiring and compassionate and fun. And it takes
Me
two that want that, and they're able to do it, like you said, because they love themselves, because they know themselves, and they can choose. They're not
right.
dependent, they're choosing it.
Yep. I love that.
Good stuff.
Good, good stuff. Thank you so much for popping back in
You're welcome.
today. I so
Yeah.
appreciate it. Brian, you're the best. Thank
Thanks,
you
Lisa.
so much.
Same to you.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.